welcome back to Clockwise Spots. You're sitting here with Blackman
What's up?
and and I'm Scout. Welcome to our three-part mini series. It's called Black Entrepreneurship. First up, we're going to talk a little bit about Magic Johnson, how he changed from him being rich from his NBA playing days to him actually growing that growing him being rich to being wealthy. Okay, so Black. We all know Magic played great years with the Lakers and NBA champion multiple different times. But that's just
Time,
part of
time,
who the man.
time.
I hear you, Booker T. Go ahead. But
I ain't got the goods.
hey, uh, but what about Magic Johnson, the business man? I know that you was looking into that, but what did you find out? What did Magic do behind the scenes to grow him from just being the average NBA player being rich to him being wealthy for long term?
Well, I mean, we again, we know Magic's on court accomplishments, Hall of Fame without question. But I think what's interesting about Magic is Magic has he has a savvy business mind. You know what I mean? He looked at his earnings as a springboard, a way to create long-term sustainable wealth, expanding his portfolio through different business ventures. You know what I mean? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of us, know that I think one of the ones that a lot of people realistically, it clicks to them quickly is probably TGI Fridays, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? But it goes deeper than that. There's Starbucks, Burger King. I mean, even had movie theaters. You know what I mean? It's called Magic Johnson Theaters. So you know
Yeah.
what I mean. His portfolio, his portfolio is like ridiculously diverse. But again, this is coming from a guy with a savvy business mind, and this goes back like really really far. Even with his movie theater ventures, because I believe that's like one of the first ones that I was able to find on record. Um, he took a equity stake with Lowe's Cineplex Theaters back in 1995. I believe that
Mm-hmm.
company's, I believe that company's been dissolved now. It's actually merged with AMC Theaters.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, but at the time, there were like literally there were theater locations. It was literally called Magic Johnson Theaters. It's not just like a silent partner or something like that. His name was actually out up front, so you knew that he was a part of this. This was part of his. This was one of the the first things that I could find under his umbrella, Magic Johnson Enterprises.
Okay.
You know.
Um, what I also heard with those enterprises though, didn't he own a whole lot of like Starbucks at one point as well? With that venture, and we
Yeah,
all know that he had a little stake in the Lakers, but the Starbucks, you know, what I read a
well,
little
yeah.
something about that. But what did you find out?
Well, I mean, it's interesting that it's Starbucks. I come to find out there are, down here in South Florida, there are football players, basketball players, that actually own like Dunkin' Donuts locations. You know what I mean? You can
Really?
see a line
Okay.
of cars. Yeah, you can see lines of cars, 2 blocks long. So it actually does make sense that people who have access to capital, invest in those type of ventures because there's clearly uh demand, I guess you can say, for it. So it does make sense as a capitalist venture. Um, the Starbucks that you were mentioning, I believe at one point, if I'm reading my notes correctly here, there were like 100 and maybe 5 locations that he owned.
Yeah.
And we understand how successful Starbucks is. We understand how successful one location is. But I mean, to have an umbrella encompassing 100 different Starbucks locations, that's that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Considering there are 50 states in our union, you could realistically have two locations in every state. I know that doesn't sound like much, but given that much ground and the amount of traffic that can generate, yeah, that's having at least a toehold. I don't know if it's a foothold, but a toehold in possibly in every state in the union.
Yeah.
That's saying
Um,
something.
the thing what I found out the most about the Starbucks deal is
Mm,
he flipped them and turned them around to where he reinvested in the Black and Latino community of making them owner operator stores and restaurants. He did the same thing with the TGI Fridays and Burger King. He turned all those stores around and said,
I mean,
okay,
even Best Buy, even hold on, even Best Buy, throw that in there too. He actually had a partnership with
yes,
Best Buy to do that as well.
yes. And if all those ventures what I read into just from the restaurants and like the Best Buy alone, it was reported back in 2010 they were already at 100 million 10 years ago.
Mm,
The most current up to date, they've cracked into 1.7 billion worth of revenue.
yeah, yeah,
And
I can easily believe that.
so the way how I see it, Magic Johnson used his network. He used his platform to network himself to be in position for the long term game.
Yeah,
Um, I'm not
but
going
as
to
well to give back
say
to the community as well.
yeah I'm not going to say that that's an easy thing to do, but you it's achievable. Anyone can network themselves into the right area or the right situation and read the room to put themselves into a better situation. And I noticed um, through doing this research on him, that's what he did. Because at first he wasn't real business savvy, but sitting there with Mr. Bus, he learned from him. And look at it just for say, co-owner of the Sparks, the Dodgers, uh, the minor
Yeah,
league,
Junior High.
the soccer team, the Galaxy, the facilities that he owns. Needless to say, it's just remarkable that he used his network to constantly go to be
He
in
uses
position
network to
for,
increase his net worth.
right. And because
Yeah,
what if I read this correctly, back in the day when Magic Johnson was playing, he was probably only worth 55 million at best, because you thinking about the 80s and almost somewhat the
mm,
90s when then he retired. So you're looking about 55, 50 to 55 million. He took that and now his net worth is 1.2 billion. That to me, that's a lot of outstanding things. And it's like how you said, he took what he had at the beginning and changed it around. But the thing what shocks me the most about all this, he gave back. It wasn't just about him rising, especially with the Starbucks, the Best Buys, the Burger Kings, and a
mm.
couple other major key player restaurants and stuff like that. Even with the Dodgers percentage, he started out with 2.3% when he first invested with it. Now he's up to 7.5%, and he's pretty much tripled it. Well, he did triple it up percentage wise, and it's remarkable that the way how he's
Shouts
been
out to the
able to do
Dodgers for
this.
winning the World Series.
Oh, not only to them, it's all through LA. You got the Lakers, you got the Dodgers, you got the Sparks. Um,
Well,
this
I mean,
this
Magic
Magic been
is,
all over it.
but I will say this though. You got to give the man. I think we got to give the man a lot of credit for taking time to soak in as much as he could, because it's well known he had a good relationship, a very, very good relationship with Dr. Buss, the late Dr. Buss. So
yes,
when
and that was his mentor.
When you're good with a businessman, and when you associate with a businessman and you kind of enter into his circle, his realm of associates, you know what I mean? It opens a lot of possibilities, but if you don't have the drive, the desire, you know what I mean? It's like having a car with no engine. A really nice looking body, but it doesn't do anything.
Right. So he had to adapt that mentality
for that. Yes,
right.
Definitely.
The main point
it's not just one random avenue that he chose. He chose to diversify himself as best that he could. You know what I mean? We're talking about investments from entertainment, food. He's actually partnered with Sodexo. They're one of the largest food service and facilities management companies like worldwide. For those of you guys who don't know, Sodexo it's pretty much like the food service staff at like your hospital. You know what I mean? Places like that, large. I guess you could call it a cafeteria in a sense, but large cafeterias, real actual staff. There's real food being cooked. He's partnered with that. So I mean, just a business idea as I guess you could say, I don't know, random if you will, but just something that out of left field. Like that's the type of stuff that Magic Johnson is very like, okay, how can I make this successful? You know what I mean? I'm gonna profit from it, I guess you could say anyway, but how can I make this idea successful, this venture successful? And that seems to be the type of person that he is. He's trying to empower people to grow.
True. The other thing the mainly thing that caught my eye, Equitrust.
Yes, that's right.
$14 billion franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the way how they say he went about the deal. He didn't come in saying what you could do for me. He said, what can I do for you? And make you understand this picture of this is what I can help you do to get over the platform. And what I read on is the way how he went about the deal. It's like how you said, once he got up to that level of talking to them people, you have to have that confidence in yourself. You have to be able to read the room, and you have to put in the hard work, the research and everything else. So you just don't be flying off at the mouth and at the handle and just don't know what you're talking about. And he really, what I read, he said he really had to change the way how he looked at it. It's not always as what people can give me, it's what I can do and to make things better. Like how you said, to make them better, because the profit margin is going to be there.
Yeah. And it's weird because I believe that's kind of how it seems like that's kind of how his mentality is it's not what can this venture do for me? It's how can I help this venture, get over the top? In doing so, I'll profit off of that. But, it's what can I do what can I lend to this idea to make this idea go from just an idea to a consumable product?
Yeah. The main point about this series is you got to understand some key things. You got to understand, one, anybody can network. We've been doing it all your life anyway. But it's understanding when you are networking, you're talking to these people, what opportunities that you can use or what avenues that you can use to, help your dream or whatever else get along but at the, the major standpoint is, what is it going to do to help somebody else? I know that's what it boils down for me. What is it actually going to do to help somebody else? Profit margins is always going to be out here and stuff like that. And not every business venture is going to break you open to where you become rich or wealthy.
That's true.
That's the bottom line. You got to understand that. And the other thing which you need to understand, if you're doing it, you gotta love to do it. You can't go halfway in and just be like, okay, it's just like a normal regular job. I'm coming to try to woo these people over, and it's just normal. Nah, you gotta be passionate, heartful. It's just like how we keep saying, you gotta be 100% all in to make.
Well, I think that's Magic Johnson. I think that's why Magic Johnson's approach is, what can I do to help this situation? You know what I mean?
Correct.
I'm willing to put in the 100% effort. So what can I do? What can I do to make this idea blossom? Rather than, okay, I'm just going to do this to, just can't, basically turns into a regular day job, like you were saying.
True.
So yeah, I'm like I said, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that 100%. I'm just going over some more of my notes, but yeah, that the Equitrust that you were mentioning. Sorry about that. I was checking my notes, but that Equitrust idea, yeah, it was reading a little bit about that, but yeah, they're talking about like $100 million in like PPP loans for like urban areas and urban businesses. That's that's what I mean when I say that's not a what can this situation do for me? How am I going to benefit from this situation? It's more of a, okay, what can I do to lend help here? You know what I mean? The concept, the idea of trying to get, or working with the SBA to help, small businesses, owned by minorities, especially like the Los Angeles area, things of that nature. It's a great idea. It's a beautiful, wonderful idea. It's
right.
It has all kinds of merit on principle. But when you have a guy like Magic Johnson, a King Midas, everything he touched turns to gold. He looks at a situation like that, and it's not, what can I get out of this? It's, what can I do to lend, what help can I give to this great idea that I want to endorse. I feel that it's going to work. That approach right there, I think, is what makes him successful, as successful as he has been. You know what I mean? He looks at things in, I guess you could say, a different perspective as a you or me, Johnny down the street or what have you.
Oh, yeah, I can totally understand that he does. You have to, you can't look at things in that mindset and look at them in 2D. You have to look at things from all angles. It has to be 3D. And, you got to go in with an open mind, clear eyes, full heart, and you can't lose.
Well, I mean, you gonna have some adversity, so you got to be able to deal with and adapt. Adaptability is a very underrated skill, but you're gonna need that because, you know what I mean. Again, these are like large ventures that we're talking about. So the fact of loss of investment is, I mean, something ridiculous that we probably couldn't even put into regular words to be able to say, like right off the top of our head. But these guys are making those investments. These guys are taking those risks. You know what I mean?
Right. So, you got to understand it. And for, people like you and me, who's going to try to step out there and do this, you got to understand it does not happen overnight. It won't happen overnight. Nothing is done with a one-hit success. It's going to take time. And the best option sometimes, you still, people don't want to talk about how many times people fail or miss their shot opportunities. They always want us to talk about the success story, but they don't want to give the other side of the coin of it. They don't want to talk about how many ventures didn't make it, or how many times they had to hit that reset button, or you had to repackage something to get there. And what I learned from all of this is always stick with your plan A. Because if you start breaking down a plan B, you're gonna take away from your plan A. And I think that's how Magic Johnson and other people just like that think. They think, no, I this is plan A, and I'm going to stick with plan A regardless of how many times I gotta try it and keep going. I'm going to go with it until the wheels fall off, as we say.
I mean, that's conviction and dedication right there.
Right, and you have to have that mentality. It's just like how we said, last week. When your back is against the wall, only way you can go is forward. And I think a lot of them, Magic Johnson, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, even all the way to one person that shows me this on a regular basis is our printing press lady who makes our merchandise. She runs it by herself. She does all the work by herself. She puts the hours in and she gets it done, and you will not hear her complain. And she's looking at the long business. Right, and it's been longevity because she's been there for years. And that's the way how you gotta look at this. You gotta look at the long game. People get caught up so quickly nowadays on how
short term.
Yes. And no, you can't, because
no.
Success is never overnight. You have to. I'm gonna say this because my grandfather used to tell me this all the time. He said, I would rather take an individual that's willing to constantly put in hard work day in, day out than take someone who is talented, who just wants to show up when the lights come on. He'd rather take that person behind the scenes or whatever else to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, because what you're gonna get with them. They're gonna work hard. They're gonna do what they need to do, regardless if someone's there or not. The talented person is, man, come on. They look at it as, oh, I can do this in my sleep. It's just a matter of time. But they're not developing and constantly growing. That person that works every day to put in for it, they're gonna keep growing. And it's crazy. You think about that when you get older. Did I do the right things? Did I put in that work?
Well, you don't want to have regrets. Period. That's the truth of the matter. You don't want to have to ask or those questions. Period. That usually means you got an issue right there.
But in the business world, a lot of people look at it that way. Did I make that right choice? Did I do this? Well, but they're not looking at they have to put in the work.
But at the same time, those business decisions, they come with large price tags. So I can understand why people would have like buyer's remorse and things of that nature.
Yeah. Hopefully from this series, everyone can learn a little bit of something of, you don't all the time have to have major capital to start down this road. First and foremost, it starts with yourself and what you have dreamed up, or you and your partners and them dreamed up. Then bottom line, you got to go put in the work. No ifs, ands, or buts. You got to put in the work and then go from there. And I will say this, take every setback, every fall, every naysayer there is that you can't do it. Take it as a learning lesson, eat that mug on the chin and keep pushing. Mm-hmm. Because it'll pay off. And that's the way you have to look at it. Yeah, and that's about it. And mainly, don't forget where you come from with it. Don't, because once you get on, it's a lot of people, a lot of business people out here that once they get on top or get stable, they don't give back and they forget, and it's dead wrong.
Well, I
Um,
I believe Magic Johnson's a shining example of that. A lot of the things that he's doing are to empower, minority communities, and this is a guy that basically, you know what I mean. He plays ball, so it's him who has to make those shots. So he worked to get to where he is, but
right.
he understands the concept that the the greater good. You know what I'm saying? It's just more profitable all the way around.
Yeah. But with that, do you honestly think Magic Johnson took his riches and made him wealthy at the end of the day?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, he took the capital that he already had, and he spread that around, probably most likely on advice from Dr. Bus, like I said, God rest his soul. So I got, like I said, I got to give props to a guy who he listened when there was knowledge being passed down. He listened and he applied it, and he applied it very well, mind you, very well.
All right. And on that, I will honestly say we say thank you for watching.